Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and today's video is all about pumpkins. So in particular, different ideas to be able to decorate up your pumpkins, make your own pumpkins, zhuzh them up, whatever you're doing, but to add them into your fall decor. Now, this first one, and I'm going to try and give you a couple of different pumpkin related ideas. So this first one, I wanted to deviate a little bit from the traditional kind of orange, the traditional fall colors, and just give you an idea of how you can still use pumpkins in a way that you kind of create your own look or that fit in with your decor, whatever that happens to be. Now, I had thrifted kind of a big grab bag of kind of fall stuff, and it was like a big mishmash of things, and in there were these kind of big pumpkins, which beautiful, love that, but you know, they're well used, you know, they've got glue sticking on them and you know, pieces falling off and things, so we definitely need to zhuzh them up a little bit. And what I decided to do, oh, big hunk of glue here, okay, let's peel that off. What I decided to do is, rather than going into the orange tones, let's go into the blues. Just because, something different. So I thought what we could do is start off with DIY Bohemian Blue. So this is a dark teal color. And what I wanted to do was start with it on our base pumpkin. So beauty, just a nice, deep, dark, rich teal color. Look how beauty that is. And then we'll take it a little bit lighter. What this is gonna do is give us a bit of a gradient look. It'll also give you an idea of how versatile the Bohemian Blue is, because you'll get an idea of what it looks like lightened up. So there's a lot of color options with Bohemian Blue just by virtue of that. And as I'm painting the back, I'm thinking I need to set up a dowel. It's got a hole in it already, so I can set up a dowel to stand it up on. I just need to have some place that I'm going to stand it up on. Okay, let's take those pencils out of there and markers. Okay, now I've got a stand. It's off this side, but I have a stand. So I am going to get, you know, this looks like pretty decent coverage. So I think that I'm going to get one full coat and then a touch-up coat on this. Before we come back, I lighten this up and start in on the next layer. The next little pumpkins I want to do, I had debated cutting down some wood to be able to make kind of a rough generic pumpkin shape. And then I came across these in the dollar store. Now, I don't like these. I mean, it says pumpkin kisses and harvest wishes, and that's kind of cute, but it just doesn't work for me. So instead, what I am doing is I am taking my orbital sander, sanding off that little phrase and all the glitter, sanding off the big honkin' sticker in the back because it just really doesn't come off very easily, and since I had the sander out, it made sense. What we're going to do, and we're going to kind of leave this, I mean, I'm going to pop the bow off. I'm going to leave the stick. I'll put the bow off to the side because I may use those and it just saves me making one. But I'm going to start off by painting them black. And I'm going to do one good coat of black on all of them. I'm going to then do a rough coat of white. So I don't need it to be a perfect coating of white. I am going to want to distress back, hence the black. But I do want white on the face where I am going to put some of my images just so that they show up well enough. So I'm just going to get these all painted black to begin with. And then And I'm just using Little Black Dress from DIY. That's my favorite black. And get them all sanded, painted up, and then come back at ya for this one. Second coat is on the big pumpkin. And while I am covered in paint, so all those of you that think I'm neat, you're wrong. I'm definitely not a neat painter. Okay. What I want to do is I want to mix up the color for this pumpkin, and I checked my stash, and I do have another little pumpkin that has its peduncle attached. So this little guy. So I'm just putting in enough paint, maybe a little more, that when I mix it up, it'll cover both pumpkins. But I'm gonna want to go a little bit lighter for each of them. So kind of an ombre effect, right? And in which case, I have my white swan over here, and I am going to add just a dollop of it to see how much that lightens it up. For this one, so that I still have room to go a lot lighter. Okay, that's going to be light enough. And I'll take my existing paintbrush, and we will get the, oh, and again, where am I putting it when I'm done? Okay, I need another place to stand it up and another dowel. For this third little pumpkin, I think it's going to be easier. I have that second one drying. I still want to keep some of this shade in case I need a second coat. And I want to go lighter still, and I think it's going to be way easier to add some of this tinted blue to more white than the other way around. I think otherwise I'll end up with way more paint than I actually need for that little pumpkin. Just because that bohemian blue is very intense. So I'm going to take kind of 2 little scoops of the white. I'm going to add just 1 little scoop of that medium blue. And I'm thinking that's a little lighter than I want relative to that. So I'm just going to add a tinge more. And this is kind of the best way to go. Just keep kind of blending it out, but you can see if I had tried to add white to this, I would have ended up with just tons of it. Okay, that's better. Just a little drop. Bohemian blue is so intense, it's so heavily pigmented. I mean, you can dilute it up to 10 parts with water and still have a really beautiful stain. And in fact, I used that stain on my desk, actually, the desk front here in the shop. So you can see there wasn't much of that already diluted color, and we're ending up with this beautiful blue. And that's one of the things to consider when you're using DIY, is just how well these mix, how well they blend, how many different shades and colors you get out of any of these paints, either by just mixing them with some white to get some tonal shifts and differences, or mix them with other colors. I mean, it's just endless, the possibilities. These little black pumpkins are dry, so I'm just going to take some white swan, and I am just going to more or less dry brush around the edges, but I'm going to do a little bit more concentrated brush of it in the middle, because that's where my images will go. So I'm not too worried about the outside, right? And here I'll just kind of do some dry brushing, and the same thing on the back. And that way I've got a good surface for my images, and I've got it a little bit more distressed everywhere else, which is perfect. So what I have is I have a big wooden pumpkin from the dollar store, and I have a styrofoam pumpkin from the dollar store. And this one I cut in half. So they have a ridge where they're glued together. Just take an X-Acto knife, slice it through. Don't expect to get half of the stem because it's one solid piece that actually has a toothpick through the middle. So you're gonna get half with one, half without one, but we're gonna be doing it with clay. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this half and we're gonna glue it down to the bottom of our board, just like this, okay? So that's gonna form the base of our design. I'm gonna get this one glued on. Since I'm gonna have two halves, it just made sense to make two of them. And then I'm gonna get the other supplies that I need to get rolling on this project. The idea with these pumpkins is that we're gonna take some IOD molds, and here, you guys, your imagination, whatever ones you have. So, I mean, I've got a mishmash of them, like the laurel and the acanthus, I have the sunflower, I mean, whatever mix of shapes you want. You could do all florals with this, you could do various shapes with this. You're just looking at putting a bunch of details down, and then we're gonna refinish them, right? So let me get some clay out of here. Always keep your clay in a plastic bag once it's open to keep it from drying out. I'm thinking that I like these big swirls, so I could have those kind of coming out here, and we're just having fun. I'm gonna want to have some coming down, some details coming down over the pumpkin as well. So I'm gonna, now the IOD molds have great micro rims which allow you to kind of push your clay against them and use it to cut, almost kind of like cut off the excess. It allows you to get a nice crisp rimmed edge on them. So that's not me being particularly skilled with this, that's the that's the molds themselves. To remove your molds, just flip them over, and then I like to kind of tease them out with a paintbrush. Now this is the paintbrush that I used to dust into some of the smaller ones with cornstarch, just to be able to help them unstick. The big ones usually aren't a big problem. If you're ever worried about the really fine detail ones, then you can always use resin instead, which is going to cast hard. Or you could take your mold, fill it with your clay, pop it into the freezer for about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then remove the molds. And because they're hard, they're going to pop out, and they're going to have kind of retracted a little bit, so then they'll just pop out. I almost never do that, only because I just want to get on with it. So I'm impatient, and I would rather just kind of tease them out easily and get it done and call it quits. Okay, so now the fun part is we've got some of these molds done, and we get to look at placing them where we want. So I had thought I did a little bee from the laurel mold, so I thought I'd put him maybe coming across here, and I have the big seashell, and I'm gonna have that coming down over here along with stuff. So let me start gluing. So for this, I'm just using a wood glue. I just happen to have Gorilla wood glue. So putting that onto the back of my pieces, and then I like to make sure, and you could use a brush for this or your finger. I just tend to do everything with my hands. They're my best tools. But use what you want. Some people don't like getting messy. I live I live in mess, so it's okay. But then just gently adhere them where you need. Now, I'm just gonna pop this pumpkin over here and use it as a bit of a prop so that I can kind of see the board a little bit. What I'm envisioning is these big scrolls coming out up this way. I just want to see, and I have a crown that I thought that I'd pop in there. Okay, it's the next day. You can tell by the change of top. And what I've got are some printouts. And these are for our little pumpkins. My big pumpkins that we painted in the 3 different blue tones are off to the side drying. They dried overnight, and I have just sprayed them with a polyacrylic sealer. So I've just got them sitting upside down on some spikes, drying off, getting ready for our next step there. So that happened off camera. But what we're doing now is I'm looking at doing a little decoupaging on these mini pumpkins. So what I did do was I printed out some graphics, and these are from thegraphicsfairy.com. So they've got awesome vintage graphics. Right now they've got like, I think it's a file of 400 different vintage Halloween kind of items. And I just kind of went with a bit of the pumpkin theme because it's going on pumpkin, so it kind of made sense. My printer printed out on cardstock by mistake, too thick for decoupaging, so I'm putting it off to the side, and I will do something else with that someday. But I printed it off on regular paper and cut them out. So what I'm looking at doing is decoupaging these onto my little pumpkins, and we're going to then distress them afterward. So it doesn't matter if they're a little bit too wide, a little bit too long. We're cool with that. All that we're going to do, and you can use any decoupage medium of your choice. I've got a whack of Mod Podge here from doing classes. So I'm just looking to use some of that up before it all goes hard. You can also use the, I love the liquid patina from DIY, is also awesome. So really, there's no magic in this, folks, right? You're just using whatever. And because these are small, there's no big fancy treatment that's required, and because we're going to distress them a little bit anyway, right? We're just looking. Now this one says Halloween greetings on it, so I want to make sure that when I distress it, most of that greeting is staying in place. So just push it flat so that's on there. And then we're going to just decoupage over the top again to kind of seal it. And then we're going to set these off to the side to dry. So the next step happens when they're dry. So we'll just put them off to the side somewhere very precarious over there to await our next step. Now, it got busy here in the shop yesterday, so our big pumpkins, I had to end up taking them home to be able to finish doing some of the molding. But we've got one here with a lot of different flowers on it, and this one that is just more kind of, you know, a little bit of the flourishes and those kinds of things. Both of them are going to start off by getting the same treatment right now, though, because while our little pumpkins decoupage is drying and our big pumpkins sealer is drying, we need to get some paint onto these. So I'm using some beadboard by DIY, but I've got a little, and it's on the dregs. I've got the dregs of White Swan. I'm just going to be using them up. Got a little chip brush because I want to get into all the grooves, and I'm just going to get both of these painted white. So one coat for sure, possibly a second coat in some spots, but I just want a nice uniform coverage over the whole piece, board included. It's very crowded on my table right now, but here are our pumpkins. So this is how I painted and dried them and have them. So they look lovely. Look at the colors of those. So that's all with the Bohemian Blue, this color, and then just lightened up, different shades, adding the white. So we're gonna be stacking them, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I do. So usually on camera, what you don't see is that I have all this stuff all piled up in front of me, and then that's what I'm picking and choosing from. So in this instance, what I've done is I've kind of grabbed things that may work. So I had one eucalyptus branch left. I have this whole big honking pile of leaves. I thrifted for $8, but I would have done it on 30% off days. So that's more like $6 tops for all of these, which are kind of in those soft silvery green, and those may work. They certainly work against the dark teal. So that's a possibility. I have those just off to the side as a maybe. And then I was looking for other soft colors. So I had this little gathering of blossoms. It's just an odd and end, but it's in that pale kind of muted tone. If I decide that I want some flowers, that may work. That may work. So I have that out. I have one pick that I'm sorry I didn't get more of from the dollar store, because look at those green and blue little berries. So shoot, but maybe I can squeeze in one of them. I have this sprig from the dollar store with all those little tiny blossoms. These kind of muted green. I don't want like bright green, dark green, so I have those greens. So I'm just spreading these all out so that I can see them. The other thing that I have, and this is one of the things that I look for when I'm thrifting all the time. So I got this old tired looking basket for, again, this was $5 less the 30%, right? Which is taking off $1.50, so it was $3.50. It's old, it's tired, but I take it apart for some of the gloriousness that's in there. Look at these little blue little berries on these picks. These are going to be awesome with this. So I'm pulling this apart in particular right now. I'm just grabbing all those little blueberries out, blue toned berries. They're not like blueberries, but every so often you hit one that's just stuck in there forever. Okay, and I think there's one more. So those I think are going to be awesome in there, just again for a little bit of a tonal variation. And some of, oh, another one hidden in there, bonus, yes. And I don't know, these ones that are kind of more in the purpley tones may work, but some of these leaves. So I end up with a bunch of this kind of stuff where I just pull it apart, and then I end up with all these odds and ends of things. So what we need to do is undo that, and let me just look at them as they'll be, right? So we are going to stack them up like this. See, that's going to be cute. And just what I think is important is that not all Halloween stuff, not all fall stuff has to be in those burnt orange colors, right? So if those colors aren't your thing, you can still kind of decorate up your home in a palette that works for you, right? Okay. So they're gonna get put together this way. Now, one of the things that I do is, and I got old sticks here, so I reuse, but I'm looking at this is gonna sit down in there. And I don't wanna put it down fully yet because I want to glue things in, but I do want to kind of have them sort of stuck in. So I have an idea of how they're going. Okay, you're on a slant I don't like. So that when I'm gluing in between, then I have an idea, okay, of how they're gonna sit. Oh, I love this. Okay, I'm excited. So what I'm looking at doing now is just kind of taking some of the items that I've got, and I have some really old mosses as well that I may kind of glue around there first. And this one is just like an old gray color, right? It's just not that bright green, which I don't want. But just having a little bit of that peeking out, which will help fill it in, but it'll give it a little bit more definition too. Let me go around the side that you guys see. Make sure I've got that covered. I'm just kind of hanging out. Okay, so what I know right now, I like the moss. So I'm gonna glue that in place first, and then we'll come back and look at adding some of the other sprigs and things together. These are 2 pumpkins so far. So this is them painted white, and really just one coat of the beadboard did it for both of them. So now it is time to clear wax them. We're gonna be doing some aging on these. So I need to get a good base of wax on there so that I can move some of my dark wax around. So this is all I'm doing. Clear wax, and I'm just using DIY wax and a chip brush because I want to get down into all of those nooks and crannies and crevices that are part of these. So I'm going to do this to both of them, and then we'll come back and we'll start waxing together. All right, now that I have the wax all over this piece, I want to move on to the next step when the wax is still wet. So meaning I'm not leaving this overnight to cure and harden up. I want to get going now. So what I am doing is I have dark wax again. So this is the brown wax, not the black. You could do it with the black as well, but I'm looking to age it, not create like a huge stark contrast. And what I'm going to be doing, I have a waxed cloth here. I have another cloth that would be for white, a clean cloth for clear wax. I have one for wiping off. And what I'm gonna do in essence is I'm gonna be adding that dark wax into all of those crevices, and then I will be wiping it away. So you can see here where I start to add it, it's kind of adding it in. For some people, they hate this. Some people hate dark wax because they're like, it makes my piece look dirty. And yes, it does. But if you ever look at really old pieces, they've got that kind of aged patina, and it's not that they're dirty. It's not that they're, never cleaned or anything. It's just that worn, aged, it just creates and sits down, and it's generations of wear. So I'm not putting lots on my brush. I am going around the details as well and kind of blurring that out a bit. I will do edges. Now you could use, as well as dark wax, you could use the DIY decrepit dust if you prefer using the dust to the wax. That's fine. That would work much the same. Now I've got this cloth that's got a lot of this, and here's where I'll just kind of rub lightly and shade around the edges with this, okay? But you can see the difference that it starts to make on one side versus the other. And you can go as much or as little as you want, but it really starts to make those details stand out. It's almost like creating shading, right? Where when it's all white, it just kind of blends in together. And as soon as you start adding some of the aging, it starts looking older, more worn, but it sits down the details and you get to see the details. So I'm gonna carry on with this piece, because once this part's done, we still have more to go once this part is done. Now I just want to show you, I deliberately put more on this side than this, so I want to even it out a little bit. I'm going to take my clean cloth, I'm going to dip it into my clear wax, and now I'm going to rub that on my piece, and that clear wax, it's not going to be able to remove all of it, so don't think that you can go back to zero, right? But you can see that it worked like an eraser and it levels out the colors. So just a little bit of a trick that you can use if you think, oh, I get a little too much. Don't despair. We can still get that working in our favor. For the second pumpkin, so this is our dark waxed aged pumpkin. We still have more to do. I decided that rather than doing the second one the same, I was going to do it in the turquoise, the shipwrecked wax from DIY. So I've done half of it, and I have to do this half. And again, there's going to be more done with this one too. We've got 2 more steps, kind of. Yeah, 2 more steps. But you know, I just decided why do them both the same, right? Show you a look that you could achieve with the turquoise wax, because again, I think some people get scared of the colored waxes, the dark wax, or you know, in particular like a turquoise wax. So yeah, I'm gonna finish the other half, and then we'll come back and we'll start in on the next step on each of these. You know, just keep it moving. We have both of these done with our colored waxes. The next step, this is the last sort of painting waxing step, is I want to add a little bling. So for this one, because this was our dark wax piece, keeping it kind of in the old, I want to add touches of gold. Options from DIY would be golden ticket, which is the liquid patina, or golden rule. Any gold of your choice. You could use a rub and buff. I'm going to be using any Sloan bright gold. 1, because I have it. 2, because my golden ticket, I am waiting for a new order to come in. So it's not available just yet. There is still one on the shelf, but I feel guilty taking the last one. So I'm just not using it. And the golden rule is a little softer than what I'm looking for. So if I'm using, on the turquoise piece, I do want to go a little bolder, so I am going to be using Pennies from Heaven, the copper patina from DIY. That I'm going to apply with a brush. This, I just find it easiest. You could use a brush. I just find it easiest to just kind of rub with my fingers, right? And I'm just going to add it to highlight the raised areas here and there. So I'm just going to be adding it strategically. It's going to be, you know, a lot of your dark wax is sitting down in the lows. So your golds are going to be sitting in the highs. And I just want to show you quickly so that's how I'm going to apply this to that. All of those details. This one, oh, I should have opened this copper beforehand. Oh, sorry guys. There we go. Okay. All right, so this one, I'm just going to take, and I like to use a stiff brush, and not very much, just to kind of highlight some of those highs here and there. And it's just going to, again, add another level. Let me do one more little flower, and then you can see maybe a little in contrast here. So I'm actually dipping into the lid here and then wiping it off against the edge of the lid, and I'm still getting way more than I might need perhaps, but there you can see that copper shimmer in there. So I'm going to carry on with both of those. I'm going to do the gold first, and then I'll come back at you for the last step. I promise. Right. I have to show you this one. Look at that with the copper. Okay, that's beauty. Last step is they need a little zhuzhing at the top. They need a bow, right? So we are going to put that together, and I'm just doing my tie-off stuff here. And I'm gonna kind of stay in the, this is the assortment that I have for the copper one. And I think I'm gonna use some real copper. So some real copper mesh. I think that would be cool. So that's what I'm gonna use for the bows here. The bow on the gold one, which is much more subtle, I'm gonna use like some gold ones and some cream lace ones and do it a little bit more Victorian style. So it's just a matter of playing with it, layering it up, and then I'll tie the hanger back onto it. So it's about just getting the bows on, and then these are done. And I'll bring you back to see all the finished projects. All right, let's take a look at our finished projects. And really, today, as much as it was about pumpkins, it's about maybe pumpkins in a different way. So, this little project was probably the most traditional look that we had, right? That we've got little board pumpkins. Okay, I like the blue one in the middle. But we're just using, let me see if I can hold them all up. Oh my goodness. So it's using kind of the old graphics, the vintage look, taking that dollar store little pumpkin and just zhuzhing it up a little bit. So again, really inexpensive to do. A little bit of paint. I printed these off from the Graphics Fairy. I just think they're really, really cute. And I don't think they started out that way. I don't think that those little pumpkins from the dollar store were particularly cute. So I love these now. And very, very quick, very easy. Certainly if you're looking for a low dollar item to have in a booth or in, a little weekend market or something, if you're doing a bazaar, I think that these are a great little item for people to be able to buy one, drop into a little vignette that they're doing. Super cute. We also had our thrifted pumpkins that I love now. They were pretty ugly before, but just again, kind of a non-traditional look. We've got the ombre going. We started with that DIY Bohemian Blue, which is one of my faves. And old greenery that, again, I got from all kinds of different thrifted projects and snipping them in and dropping them in. And I think that this is a really cute fall look without going into the traditional fall colors. So let me know what you think of that one, but I think I'm stealing that one myself. So I always say that, and then I think, no, I have to sell them. That's what I do. The last project, we took those board pumpkins, so the wooden pumpkins from the dollar store, and a styrofoam pumpkin from the dollar store. We just used one. We cut it in half, and we attached it on. We used some of the IOD molds and clay, and just kind of did them up with a little bit of antiquing and some gold, a little bit of ribbon. I made this one, you know, colorful but short, very traditional looking, kind of in the old world look. Yeah, this one's my fave. So I kept it with just that gold, with just that copper mesh. I tried it with other ribbons and I didn't like it, but I just like having a little bit of that dangling above it, but with that turquoise wax and with that copper. Again, just a totally different look. Use whatever the molds that you have. This one was with flowers. This was with some of the scroll work and some of the little florals that were with that. But mix and match them, do what you want. Add as many as you want. You know, I could have done one and used just as much molds and things. You could also paint out your board pumpkin first, your wooden pumpkin first, stamp it, do all kinds of background, and then add your pumpkin and the moldings and paint those out and have them. Let me know what you think of these ones, guys. Really, I just hope they serve as a jumping point and some inspiration for you in doing some of your holiday, you know, decor, adding some pumpkins into your decor in different ways, more than anything else. As always, look forward to hearing from you and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.